Hello
Oh,
and welcome to Day One Pass Podcast, episode 494. We're almost at 500, Matt.
yep.
We should
Freaking
just
awesome.
cap it
Fuck,
there.
fuck
We're
no.
done.
You
Why
said
not?
you said that like every 50.
Well, because no one's listening. So,
People are listening.
well, it doesn't feel like it.
I've actually had like a few people like talk to me like about stuff we've talked about.
Really?
Yeah, I've had like a couple of DMs on Instagram. I'm not joking either. I'm not just saying that. Like it hasn't been in the
Just
hundreds or
saying
anything,
that.
but that's pretty good.
But anyway, we got some stories to cover. But first, we're going to start it off. Matt has prepared another excellent video game fun fact. Matt, take it away.
Man, right as I sip the bubbly, pretty good. All right, ready to go here. So this is about the first Easter egg, or what is considered at least the first Easter egg, because I know some of these things can be controversial. Now, the Easter egg itself is, sort of by today's standards, rather sort of like, oh yeah, we've kind of seen that before. But like I said, this is, arguably the first one. And I dove into the reason why it was done. And this is where it got a little juicy. So there's a video game called Adventure for the Atari 2600s and for the Atari 2600, where players navigate through a series of rooms and mazes to recover a magical chalice and return it to the Golden Castle. This game was inspired by the text-based PC game Colossal Cave Adventure. And in that game, it was developed by, or rather, that game was developed, Adventure was developed by Warren Robinett. And he included a hidden room that contained the text, quote, created by Warren Robinett. Now, to find the Easter egg, again, like I said, doesn't seem like it's the biggest Easter egg in the world, but there's a juicy component to all this. But to find the Easter egg, if you're curious and you're playing this game for some reason, going back and doing some retro games, to find it, players must locate a single pixel object known as the gray dot, which is almost invisible due to its size and color. Now, the gray dot is located in the Black Castle catacombs, and after picking it up, players need to take it to a particular screen with a black wall. When the player carries the gray dot to the correct place, the wall becomes passable, leading to the hidden room, and inside the room is written that secret message, once again created by Warren Robinett. Now, at the time, this message was significant because Atari did not allow developers to include their name in the credits. So this was a way of Robinett kind of claiming his work and letting him know, hey, I actually made this. And this, of course, kicked off the tradition of developers hiding Easter eggs all over the place, hiding hidden messages, random goodies, all over the place in different sort of hidden rooms, glitchy rooms, etc., in-game areas. And we, of course, now call these Easter eggs, as I mentioned. Now, why did this Easter egg matter so much? Other than it being, the first, during the late 1970s and the early 1980s, the gaming industry was still really new. It was in its infancy. And corporate practices at companies like Atari it just did straight up reflect a different era of business management and intellectual property control. So I have a list of the corporate practices at the time at Atari. And the first one is that there was a lack of developer credits, which I mentioned before. So game developers were not credited for their work. Games were released under the company's name rather than acknowledging individual contributions. And this was because Atari feared that giving credit to developers would lead them to gaining recognition and potentially being poached by competitors.
Oh, no.
And they wanted to maintain control over their workforce and obviously their talent in general and ensure that the company, not the individual, was seen as the source of innovation and creativity. So more or less building up the brand of Atari, not of the individual. A second thing here is strict intellectual property control, something I also touched on earlier. Companies maintain tight control over IP created by their employees. Everything developed during work hours was owned by the company. And this was, of course, to protect IP. Protecting IP at the time, and I mean, even today, realistically, was crucial for maintaining a competitive edge in the rapidly growing and competitive video game market. If you kept a firm grip on IP, then companies felt as though they were safeguarding their innovations and therefore could then maximize profits. The third thing here is work for hire agreements. So developers were under strict work for hire agreements, meaning anything they created while employed by the company belonged to the company. So very similar to the strict IP property control. And these agreements were standard in many industries, not just video game industry, not just the video game industry, to ensure that all creations and innovations remained with the employer, preventing employees from taking their ideas elsewhere. And the last thing here is secrecy and non-disclosure. So companies often enforced strict secrecy and non-disclosure agreements. Same thing happens today. And this was to prevent information about projects and internal practices from leaking. So your competitors would know what was coming up. Consumers would, of course, get less excited and those type of things. And in a highly competitive tech and gaming sectors, maintaining secrecy was essential to prevent your competitors from gaining insights, like I said, but you also don't want any sort of poaching to happen in case, like they say, like, oh, we know that like Bill got hired there. He's working on a big project, and then a big project just leaked. We'd like a big project like that. Let's try to poach Bill. So you don't want to give your competitors any sort of insight, any sort of edge, any sort of thread to pull, if you will, to get a leg up on you. Now, why were these practices in place? So we've touched on this a little bit, but basically the industry was really it wasn't its infancy, but it was also really, unstable, really. And this was because it was in its infancy, it was evolving rapidly. And so as things evolve rapidly, of course, you're sort of like, you don't have the sort of foundation that a lot of industries, the sort of bedrock, if you will, that a lot of industries have. And companies were, during this infancy, experimenting with different business models and practices to find out what worked best. And there was a strong desire during these innovations, during these changes, to maintain as much control of the production and innovation process as possible. The fear of competition was another one. And I've already mentioned this a few times, but obviously this is, an increasingly, exciting market. A lot of competitors were spinning up. People were spinning up companies with different business models, like I just said. So everyone's sort of afraid of their neighbor. And so when the consumer goes to the store to buy a video game, when you show, hey, Atari is the big brand, right? Atari is the brand. We're the innovators. We're the smart ones, effectively. We're the good ones. You are like, play our games. We're the best. They're basically trying to ward off competitors. And of course, by doing things like having a lot of NDAs, a lot of secrecy and those type of things, that also warded off competition. And then, of course, as with all things with business, there was also a profit maximization section of this, which we touched on very briefly earlier. But by ensuring that all the things that were created were actually company property, business could maximize the profits from the products that were developed. And this allowed companies to reinvest in new projects, maintain their market position. Now, this all sounds well and good on the company side, right? In particular, Atari is, raking in a bunch of money from this stuff. They have these really strict policies, but, companies are worked for by humans. And so there's going to be an impact on these humans. Mm-hmm. And so the impact on developers because of these practices was actually a lack of recognition, quite obviously. So developers would often feel undervalued and even feel like super anonymous or even like secret, despite significant contributions. Many of their contributions were very sort of almost like Herculean in like a matter of speaking, because sometimes a game would be, developed in like 30 days or 10 days or like something crazy, because games were rather simple back then. And so it'd be like, hey, can you get this done? And this person just, works all day, works all night. And then it's like, by Atari, not by Matt, if I was the one doing it, right? Not by Ryan, it's by Atari.
Yeah.
So this, of course, led to frustration and in some cases rebellion against corporate policies like the Easter egg that we were talking about today. And then, of course, creative rebellion. So the lack of recognition and strict control motivated some developers to find ways to assert their identity and contributions, leading to creative acts like the Easter egg that Warren Robinett left in the game Adventure. Now, the restrictive corporate policies of the time eventually led to changes in the industry. As the gaming industry matured, the importance of recognizing and retaining talented developers became more apparent. Modern game development often highlights individual contributions, as we see with sort of influencer-like videos where they bring the, here's the QA person, here's the head of art, here's the head of this, here's the head of that. And we start to recognize these faces, Phil Spencer, Todd Howard, and then even people underneath them. Like, I think it was Matt Grandstaff was the leader of Fallout 76 for a time. And so these developers, these leaders are frequently now credited for their work. And so, there's been kind of great progress, I suppose, in the world of game development in this way. However, as you could probably tell, there a lot of stuff, and maybe there doesn't need to be progress in this area necessarily, but a lot of the old practices are still in place. Lots of NDAs, right? Things are leaking. The reason
Yeah.
why they're leaking is because you want things to be secret. You want them to be behind NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And
Non-compete clauses.
non-compete clauses as well, of course. There's also like really weird deals like we saw with Kojima, where it's like so hush hush, like no one's saying anything, right?
Hmm.
Kojima's not saying anything, Konami's not saying anything when he disappeared for whatever it was, a year or whatever. And it's
But it
like, was
feels
that?
like something bad went down.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, was it a non-compete clause? Was it like, did he sign a deal and like just can't say anything and it actually wasn't bad? Was it Konami being predatory? Like, we don't know, right? We don't know. Was Konami just, exercising their contract that Kojima signed? Who knows, right? So it's a question there too. And of course, like, I mean, the poaching thing is not as, I was gonna say it's not as prevalent. Like it's certainly there still. Like companies do this in a bunch of different industries, poaching different talents. But I feel like in these days, for whatever reason, a lot of developers get laid off and then they end up going to other places. So I feel like the anti-compete stuff is certainly still there, but it's not as strong as it once was.
Oh, for sure it is. I think in the U.S. they're looking at passing laws. I'm not sure if it's federal or state, um, but they want to ban non-compete clauses because
Really?
I understand the IP stuff. If you create IP for a company, it's they paid you to create it for them. It's theirs. That makes sense to me, right?
Right.
I don't know about the all the work you do while employed by them. That's a little weird. If I'm not mistaken, I think Marvel might have done something like that. I could be wrong about that though. It's been a while. Um, but the non-compete stuff, it's like if capitalism is all about competition, creating the best product, you know, then you should also have to compete for talent. You know, if you don't want to lose your most talented person, whoever that is, maybe you should pay them better or treat them better or give them more benefits or whatever you got to do to keep them working at your company. It's ridiculous to say, oh, as soon as we fire you or whatever, or you quit, you can't take the talents you've been developing over the years and take them to some other company. That's crazy. What are you
Yeah,
supposed to
like
do if you're a software engineer specialized in, I don't know, security or something, and you quit and you can't go anywhere else? What are you supposed to do?
yeah. Well, the thing that really sucks here too is like, I mean, side hustles are a huge part of our culture now. People
Yeah.
are doing side hustles and making money on the side and stuff like that. And many of these side hustles develop or create IP, right? Like you make a website, it's your blog, or it's a tech blog, or it's a YouTube channel or whatever, and people will work full time while running their YouTube channel or running their website or running their Shopify store or what have you. And like it's just something that doesn't really happen. Like it's like you, or rather it couldn't happen back then is what I meant to say. Like if you went and you made a blog post or you made a blog and you called it like Matt's tech blog, and I was working for Atari, like chances are Atari would be like, yo, I want that. Like
Yeah.
that's mine. Or I would have to go to them and be like, yo, I have this blog thing, do you want it? And then they would have to like release it. Like wasn't there a thing like that with Steve Jobs early in the day where he was working for HP or something, and then HP could have like taken his work on like the original Apple computers or something like that, but then they said like,
There might
we
have
don't
been.
want
I
it.
think I think he might have worked at IBM first or something like that. Then he went to Atari.
Oh, I think it might have
Yeah.
been what's his name? Wozniak, wasn't it? Like somebody I'm pretty sure was like working for HP. And then when they were building stuff, like it was kind of revealed like, oh my God, like everything I make
Right.
is like potentially under their ownership. And again, I might be wrong on the HP and who exactly it was, but I remember that being in one of the movies. I think it might have been in the Ashton Kutcher movie.
Well, I don't know the accuracy of that one, but maybe yeah, you might be right.
But like that's crazy. Like and you know what? Like I wouldn't be surprised if that still happens to some point today. Maybe it can't. Like I don't know all the laws and stuff, and certainly not a lawyer. But I wouldn't be surprised that happens to an extent today because I mean, like I don't really like it, but I get it in the idea that hey, you're what would I say? Like you learned how to make, let's just say you learned how to make websites for me, and then like you went and made one for yourself while you're still working for me.
Hmm.
Like it feels a little bit scuzzy, but at the same time, it's like there's supposed to be a separation between personal and professional. So like, where's the line there? And I don't have the answer, but like things can get a little greasy. But I mean, the point of the matter is this Easter egg was sort of a rebellion against some of this sort of corporate grease. And clearly there's been progress. I'm sure it's not perfect, but there's been progress since the early 80s and the late 1970s in the video game industry anyway.
Hmm. Oh, I had a point and I was gonna slipped out of my head.
You were going to talk about how you've confirmed that it was HP.
Oh, no, there's just always this battle where it's like, as a company, we need to foster talent and help grow that talent, right? But then they want all the offshoots of that talent because they feel like they have a right to it, I guess. Because like I'm in a band and I remember we had like we were looking at a contract and there was a sunset clause. Now we weren't really familiar with sunset clauses at the time, right? But there's a thing like they wanted and this is what kind of scared us off from signing. It was that they would build us up as a brand of sorts, right? Market us, send us out on tours, and we would theoretically gain notoriety, you know, or fame, I guess, quote unquote, fame. And if we ever canceled the contract with them, they would still get residuals from our work after that.
Right, because they developed, like they
They
helped you
put they
develop
put
the
money
skill.
and effort and time into developing us, and then if we were to quit, they feel like they own a portion of what we do after that for several years after that, right? That's what scared us off of signing that contract. But it's like they just want to own everything about you, even though it's necessary for them to build you up to help themselves. You know?
Well, there is like it is a like the weird thing is like I'm sure there's times in which like the company is like kind of morally in the right where like someone has like intentionally greased them for something, right? Like they
Yeah.
were they were like their facilities were used. The people never had any intention of working with them long term, never had any intention of making them any money. They just like use their facility, use their recording facility, and then it's like, okay, I've gained enough fame, I'm leaving. But at the
Hmm.
same time, it's like it's so abusable. Like it's super abusable.
Oh yeah, yeah. I get it in essence. I understand why you'd want something like that because if
Yes.
you're making an investment if you're hiring these people on, or in our case, like getting a contract, right? They were technically investing in us, and they want to see some returns. I get
Yes.
it, but I just think it's a weird balance between it's like you need talent that if you want to be successful in managing something or selling a product, you need talent to do that. And so you develop that talent, but I don't know if you necessarily own that talent.
Yeah,
You know what
that's
I
where it
mean?
starts getting. Yeah, this is where the line starts becoming like,
Because we're
okay,
talking humans here, not a machine,
right,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
and in your case, it was like an art form, so
yeah,
it's like there's also that angle to it.
yeah. If anything, it should have just been like the contract it like locks us in for like 5 years, and then they get a portion of anything that we do over those 5 years. So that would prevent us from just signing him putting all this work in, and then us quitting right away. You know,
Well, did you have a sunset clause only if you left? Like, was it a 5-year contract, or was the sunset clause like even like let's say it was a 5-year contract, and then you were like, all right, 5 years is up, we don't want to resign. Does the sunset clause still get initiated?
I mean, yeah, it was all like contract talk, so that might have been part of it. I don't remember. This was years and years ago.
Right.
But anyway, yeah. This started off as Easter eggs, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I did look up here. I asked ChatGPT about this HP situation. So for some clarity here, I'm just going to read the response verbatim. Yes, there's a notable story involving Steve Wozniak, who was working at HP when he co-founded Apple in 1976. While still employed at HP, Wozniak developed the Apple One computer. Following company policy, he offered the design to HP first, as he was required to do. However, HP declined
Ah,
the opportunity to develop the personal computer, allowing Wozniak to proceed with his plans to establish Apple with Steve Jobs. And this decision by HP is often mentioned as a significant missed opportunity in the
big
history of
mistakey,
technology.
big mistakey. Although you never know how it would go, right? If HP did buy it, right? You never know if they had the chops to actually sell it to consumers.
Or if they just like had a different vision and it sucked.
But this was at a time when personal home computers was not a thing,
No, right.
and so they might not have had the vision to actually see it through, whereas Steve Jobs did. you know. So like we can think, oh, maybe HP would have been the Apple of the 21st century, right? But it's like, well, maybe not. You never really know.
You know what's kind of crazy too about this is like we're talking like this little fact here is from 1976, and we're talking about PCs becoming more popular or like kind of being created really and more or less invented around this time. What's super weird is that it was very common in the 90s for people to still not have a home computer.
Yeah,
Like I didn't have a home computer until I was in grade two.
because they were expensive.
Well, they were expensive, and there
They
there
still
is
are.
well, sure, but well, I mean, relatively, like you get a pretty good deal on a used computer these days. But um, it's one of those things, right, where it's like you don't think of what like right now I'm talking to ChatGPT. If you Ryan never had a PC, and I told you like, yo man, I'm on my computer and I'm talking to a bot, you'd be like, cool. And it would seem like a toy, but it wouldn't be something that you're like, man, I wish I had a device I could do that.
Right.
Like many people would be like that,
Hmm.
you know. Whereas, or like, yo, I'm like just checking my email, and you would just think, well, I get mail,
Yeah.
so why would I, like um the life changing like implications. I guess I don't know. It sounds ridiculous, but the life changing implications of owning a computer aren't immediately obvious in like a demo. Someone demos it for you, it's not immediately obvious. Once you have it for a while, you're like, holy crap! I could draw on this thing. I could do this, that, whole bunch of stuff.
Well, that's where Steve Jobs comes in, right? He focused on what you would actually use it for in your home, whereas like IBM was very much a work computer. You
Right.
know, you use it to I don't know what they did on it back then. Word documents, they process words documents.
I guess.
I don't even know if they did that, but you would run machines or do whatever. But he showed you they could do like art on it. That was the whole with the Macintosh. With the inclusion of the mouse and stuff like that. Um, Actually doing things that you might want to do at home. You know.
Yeah, there's like it's like the invention of the I'm sorry, the creator market. It's the consumer market.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Ryan.
Gonna move on to our first news story of the week. This was the biggest one of the week. There wasn't too much news, but this was the biggest one. Video game voice actors officially go on strike over AI protections. This is from IGN here. In a press release, SAG-AFTRA announced that its video game voice actors will go on strike beginning at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, July 26th. This vote comes after over a year and a half of negotiations between game companies and workers that has not yet resulted in a deal. The main reason for the strike, SAG-AFTRA says, is that video game companies have not come to an agreement with the actors over regulating generative artificial intelligence in their projects. Quote, we're not going to consent to a contract that allows companies to abuse AI to the detriment of our members. Enough is enough. When these companies get serious about offering an agreement our members can live and work with, we will be here ready to negotiate. That was from SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher, the nanny, for those unaware. Quote, 18 months of negotiations have shown us that our employers are not interested in fair, reasonable AI protections, but rather flagrant exploitation. We refuse this paradigm. We will not leave any of our members behind or wait for sufficient protection any longer, end quote. What's interesting about this was like part of the big SAG-AFTRA strike that happened. I don't remember when that was. Earlier this year, was that?
I remember it. I remember something like that being mentioned. I don't remember when it was.
Yeah, so AI has been the big thing, and it sounds like they're trying to get out in front of this because you probably can see how easy it would be, even for voice actors who replicate celebrities' voices. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy named James Arnold Taylor. He's the voice of like Obi-Wan in the show, in the cartoon, Clone Wars. He's impersonating Ewan McGregor. You know, but what if you had AI and you could just make Ewan McGregor?
Oh, yeah, you could definitely do it too.
You know what I mean? So these AI protections are interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, this reminds me. This is really. It's gonna sound super weird, but this reminds me of the original Star Trek. Actually, Ryan, do you remember there's an episode in the original Star Trek where they attach to the Enterprise a computer that is supposed to act like the captain,
Yeah, yeah.
and it like goes off the rails in some way, and then there's kind of like that whole like, well, that's the human effect, and but I'm sure that the engineers will continue working on this sort of like automated captain, and maybe it'll come down the pipe at some point. And so strikes like these really remind me of that for some reason, because like we've had so many conversations like off the books and with so many people at this point of like, oh, is AI coming to replace us? And one of the arguments always is that humans will, even at the cost of efficiency, demand their presence.
Hmm.
Like they'll demand their hand in it, whether it's, in this case or, a bunch of other cases as well. They will demand that they are still, they're still used. The cap, like the Starfleet captains, even in the next generation, are still flying, right? There's no robotic ship flying around, or at least not that I'm aware
Right.
of, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the human effect is still so very much there, and that's why I'm bullish on AI. Like I really like the idea of AI, and but I look at it through the lens of someone who likes tech, and I want to see what it can do, and I push AI based on that. But I definitely sympathize with those that are like, yo, I might get completely replaced, and it's like I definitely realize that. Like I definitely acknowledge that, and it makes sense to try to get some AI protections. I would imagine in there, but just like the Star Trek episode, that's why I mention it. I pretty well guarantee you that somebody, or like that AI loopholes or whatever you want to call them, like someone's working on making sure that they can continue to use AI voice actors because
Hmm.
it's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's this, it's that, right?
Well, they're not fighting for no AI being used for voices.
Right,
They simply want you to get the. Well, I don't think they wanted to replace actors, right? Obviously, because that would be jobs lost. But
right,
in replacing an actor who's like an established actor, uh, they want the permission. So if you're okay with them, like either paying you or whatever, to use AI in future projects or something with their voice, that would all have
right.
to be negotiated per project. So they're not saying don't ever use it. It's now like just up to the person who owns the voice. You know, that's their voice.
Right. And that's sort of what I mean, I guess, is like the engineers or the lawyers or whatever in the background are going to work on ways to get around this, to get around the demands. Like they're going to get around any version of AI protection, whether it's the one that we're talking about today or like, another one. It's like AI is a very efficient tool, right?
Hmm.
Very efficient. Like there's no way or no ifs, ands, or buts around it. If you know how to use it, it's very efficient. So, I mean, and it's coming. And I don't know, like it's
Well, I was just thinking like I'm not saying I don't know what Tom Hanks's opinion is on this, but Tom Hanks he said that his brother does the voices for his characters that appear in other mediums.
right.
So let's say there's like a Toy Story game, his brother will do the voice of Woody.
Okay. Yeah.
But theoretically, with AI, Tom Hanks could just give approval and say, use my AI voice for that game, and then give me $1 million. You know?
Yeah, like I definitely I do not disagree with SAG-AFTRA's thing here. Like it makes sense. Like I would feel really weird if I turned on a podcast one day and it was my voice doing a gaming podcast that wasn't this one.
Right.
It'd be pretty strange. And effectively, we're not really making money from this. So like, like I don't know. Like it would feel super weird. It would feel super weird um to have my voice when I didn't say it. Like
Yeah.
I would almost do it like a party trick on an AI, but like, my voice really isn't quote unquote worth anything in the way that like these guys, right? Like I'm not a voice actor
Yeah.
is what I mean. In the context of SAG-AFTRA. But like I totally agree with them. Like it's like, hey, you're using my voice. Because this touches on that stuff with what is it? Disney, I think, where they're taking the likeness of actors and stuff like that. And there's that whole sort of like wishy-washy. I haven't like read into this in a while now, so I might be incorrect on some of this. But isn't there like some wishy-washy sort of like legal stuff going on there, where it's sort of like, yeah, like Disney just owns the likeness of this person, so like if that person dies or they can't get them for something, they might just be able to like quickly CG them into a scene.
Hmm.
And it's sort of like, could you imagine just seeing yourself like, You know what
that
I
you
mean?
didn't
Like,
authorize. Yeah,
yeah, like
you'd probably be pretty pissed.
it's su- I don't know if I'd be pissed. I think I'd be really scared. I don't know why. I feel like I'd be scared right away. I probably would become pissed once the fear passed. So yeah, like I mean, I think that these demands in this particular case are pretty reasonable because they're acknowledging that thing I was saying, where it's like AI is coming. You know, AI is coming whether you like it or not, and they're not saying AI ban. They're saying AI protections. Like they're working with AI, if you will, in a
Yeah.
way. And so I think that that's smart. I think that's a good way to go about it.
What I think why these studios, including the movie studios and like why these game studios are so caught up on this AI stuff is that obviously, the cost of these projects has skyrocketed over the last, 10 years or whatever it's been. And they probably see AI as a way to lower production costs, right? And that's probably why they're kind of getting caught up on this. I don't have a source for this, but just from my memory, it's like they negotiated like 23 out of 24 things and couldn't come to an agreement on the 24th thing, which was AI. And I almost feel like it's because they want to use AI as much as possible, you know?
Well, like it comes down to that argument. Like if we take it into a company that's like really small, like an indie company,
Hmm.
indie game dev, where like okay, in contrast, a big company can more or less afford, usually unless they're in financial distress, they can afford to pay somebody, but they would prefer to not, right, to in
Hmm.
order to maximize
Yeah.
profits, but they can afford. And
Yeah.
so many people will kind of get on their back and be like, yo, just hire that voice actor. Whereas I find that some indie studios are kind of getting a little bit on social media. Like this isn't by any sort of official thing that I'm aware of, but like some indie studios are using AI voices as well, and they'll kind of get flack as well. And so some studios will be like, hey, this is just early access. As we earn money, as we get investors or whatever, we'll make them, sort of quote unquote real actors. Like we'll hire real actors. And I wonder how long the public is going to sort of stand against AI voices.
Hmm.
Like, at what point is the dam going to break, or will it break? And it'll just be like, yeah, man, like people used to record these voices or these phrases, and they're not, because there's almost like a movement out there right now where it's like people, how do I describe this? It's almost like, so people want you to hire somebody if there's a potential for it.
Hmm.
Like people will use AI art, and if you're like, some people will like say like hey, I'm going to ethically use AI art, right? And so they'll say, hey, I'm going to use it on a project in which I would never have hired anybody.
Yeah.
And then other people will argue, well, then why don't you just hire somebody? Like if you care enough to do the AI art, like why, then why wouldn't you just hire somebody? And you're like, yeah, but I just did AI art instead. And they're saying like that's like almost too much effort put in. Like if you truly don't care, then just don't do it. If you truly care, then hire someone. So like you start
But
getting into this area of the conversation a little bit.
time is just a massive factor too. And as they say, time is money, right? If you're trying to make a game and you need a voice actor for some role, you're gonna have to do casting, get them to sign a contract, get them to a recording studio, spend a day or two or several, you know, throwing down lines and stuff. You know what I mean? It just AI just quickens so many tasks that it's a little scary.
It's
Because if you needed a piece of art, it's like you're going to have to hire someone. You're going to find someone who can do the art you want, and then you have back and forth between the designs, and then you have to finalize it. It takes forever when you can just get AI to do it. It's a very hard thing to you know go against.
I feel as though too, it's like it's hard to argue against if you are used to using it as well. Like it's so efficient. Like there's going to be people today that are like super used to just using AI. And let's
Hmm.
say like AI protections start getting put in. So despite any backlash or any sort of like ethical question, these people today are using AI nonstop. And then some AI protections, either by SAG-AFTRA or wherever industry that they're in, get put into place. It's going to be a real hard sell for that person to go from just quickly generating a voiceover or an image or a flyer or whatever it is, whatever their job is,
Yeah.
to then going like, well, I got to call a designer, I got to do, and then like go through that process that you just described. Like it's
Hmm.
a hard sell. And like for me, and like I mean for you as well, I'm sure, like we're used to you working with humans.
Yeah.
But like you're right, like time, like time is money, but also time, like as time goes on, we're going to get more and more people in the workforce that are more used to working with AI than humans,
Hmm.
or like are just very familiar with AI at the very least.
The one problem with AI right now is you have to be very specific with what you want accomplished in certain circumstances. Because like I manage the website for my work, and I try to embed a YouTube video. Now that's easy enough. You get the embed code, you paste it into the HTML section on your site or whatever, and it just shows up. The problem was its dimensions are not automatically fitting to whatever page it appears on.
Right.
Um, and I could either contact my web dev guys who could fix it, and that would take at least 24 hours because they don't respond until like the evening, you know, Uh, or I just use chat or Copilot. That's what I was using, but I had to give it several attempts to try to get the right language to describe what I wanted, you
Right.
know.
Okay.
And I'm still struggling with AI in that sense, where it's hard to communicate to it. A human can infer things, right? Or if a human knows about that issue, it's easier to communicate it to them so they know what I'm talking about. Whereas
Right.
with Copilot, you really have to kind of baby it into what you want.
I will
At least
say
I had to in that circumstance.
well, I 100% agree with you. Like I've kind of migrated a little bit over from Copilot to ChatGPT, and I have the premium version or plus or whatever the paid version is.
Yeah.
And I was starting to like really be specific with ChatGPT, and then I kind of got a little more liberal with it, and I kind of stopped doing it as much. And it doesn't always do it, but I find that Copilot needs to be guided a lot, like you're saying. Whereas
Hmm.
I personally find that ChatGPT does not need to be guided as much.
That's
And
interesting.
so like AI is already progressing in that area.
Hmm. Well, that's the thing too. It's always going to get better, and it's the worst it's ever going to be right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's move on to our next story. This was a long one in the works here. Fallout, massive Fallout 4 mod, Fallout London, is now out. This is from IGN. The hotly anticipated Fallout 4 mod, Fallout London, finally launches July 25th. That was yesterday for us. After a series of delays, Team Folon, do they pronounce it Folon? Or is it Folon?
I think well, it's a technically an acronym, but I think they say full on.
Team Folon lead project manager Dean Carter told Inverse that unless nuclear war happens, yes, July 25th is the release date. The mod was previously set to arrive on April 23rd, 2024, but the actual Fallout developer, Bethesda, announced a surprise update for Fallout 4, which kind of broke the mod, and they were pretty pissed off. They made some allegations, like they thought it was a personal attack from Bethesda, which I thought was kind of funny. I kind of doubt that. But yeah, it's now here, and I guess you can now download it. You might have to go through some things to get it working, but you can look that up online if you're interested.
Well, it's available on GOG,
That's right, yeah.
being distributed via there.
With a certain update version of Fallout 4, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that, but I do know that it. Like I'm looking. I'm right on the GOG page right now. Sadly, it's only got 3.5 out of 5 right now
The rating?
for the reviews. Now, I haven't looked at the reviews, whether they've been review bombed or whatever. I don't know. But this mod is coming in at 33.8 gigabytes.
Wow, that's
Holy
like
Christ.
that's got to be close to the size of Fallout 4, right?
Probably. I mean, although Fallout 4 has now been updated or whatever, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of 5-star. Like the first page is all 5-star. Wait, this person's saying, oh, no way to play. Oh, I don't know. Okay, so like I feel like people are finding it's early days, so like people might be like finding like technical problems, and then of course they're like
Yeah,
flagging. They're like, yo, 1-star, 1-star, 1-star.
yeah.
Yeah, like long loading times on M2 SSDs and crashes. This person says, wait till they fixed it. Both of them are 1-star reviews, and those are just some examples. Passion can't counter bad implementation, 1-star. So, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, there's a lot of 5-stars there. It seems to be either 5 or 1, realistically, like some obviously in between. But, I mean, I'm going to give this a go when it's updated.
Hmm. You're
I,
actually gonna try it, eh?
yeah, oh, yeah. I am curious. Do you have to use like Fallout London, or excuse me, do you have to use the Fallout 4 version on GOG?
I imagine that's how it works.
So like
I don't
normally
know for
you,
sure though.
well, I don't know for sure either. Like I'm not going to do research like live right now, obviously, but like I'm just curious. Like it would really suck. Oh, here it is. Okay, never mind. A requirement for you to play and install Fallout London is for you to own Fallout 4 and all of its DLCs or the Game of the Year edition on GOG or Steam. There you go.
So how does the update that's on or the mod that's on GOG work with the Steam version?
So it says currently it is a requirement that if you own the game on Steam, for you to downgrade Fallout 4 to the pre next gen, which is Fallout 4 1.10.163.0 release of the game.
Jeez.
Well, I mean that makes sense though. Like they would have. I bet you they've run into some serious trouble trying to get it working on the next gen version, and then it's just sort of like,
Trouble.
man, this is going to take another year. Was that RoboCop?
Yeah.
Repair. There's been some trouble.
Oh man, we
Uh,
can just claim this now, eh? It's just. Oh no, do you have to buy it?
Well, I think it's fucking crazy that it's just like on GOG. Like it's just like there's just a big old mod just on GOG.
Is it free though? Oh, it's free. Why does it say buy now?
I don't know. That might just be more of a.
I gotta like add to my cart and crap.
I clicked on the GOG link in it, and my browser blocked it. I don't know why that is, but I was just on the page, so I think something just buggered up. But
Apparently, the free cost has been adjusted to meet with Ontario taxes,
oh, because you have to probably like say like, yo, it's a $0 item times 13%,
which is zero.
which is zero, because they'll want that. They'll want to know that
Oh,
the government, I assume.
pay for order now. They need to update this. GOG has me paying for free things here.
A lot of stuff does that though. So when you get the free games on Epic, you either make like a $0 transaction.
You know what's interesting though on iOS, they used to say free, right? And then you tap on it and download it. Now it says get because one of the problems they were having is that people thought it was free, but inside it has all the microtransactions.
Oh, I see.
And so now get just means you get it, and then there could be payments or it could be free. Who knows?
What a crazy problem to have.
It's just one of those things where it's just like just use your heads, people. You know, the
Yeah,
software itself is free, but it has paid things inside of it. Like Christ.
you gotta get mad, Ryan. You gotta get mad.
Speaking of getting mad, Tim Sweeney freaking angry. I don't know actually know if he's actually angry or not. It's hard to tell when it's on X. It just it wasn't using caps. It was just a normal tweet. But anyway, Fortnite is leaving the Samsung Galaxy Store, but coming to other mobile storefronts soon. That's from IGN. Epic Games has announced a number of new updates to how Fortnite will be distributed on mobile devices, including its planned removal from the Samsung Galaxy Store and its addition to a number of other mobile storefronts in the near future. In a blog post today, Epic revealed that it would be bringing its mobile games, including Fortnite, to other mobile stores that give all developers a great deal, and it would be ending its distribution partnerships with mobile stores that serve as rent collectors without competing robustly and serving all developers fairly, even if those stores offer us a special deal for our own games. The post specifically calls out EU and iOS only storefront Alt Store as one of the places Epic Games will soon appear, adding that it expects to announce support for at least 2 other third-party stores soon. Additionally, Epic is preparing to bring its own Epic Game Store app to Android globally and iOS in the EU soon. Conversely, Fortnite will be removing Fortnite and its other games from the Samsung Galaxy Store in protest of Samsung's anti-competitive decision to block sideloading by default on Samsung Android devices. This is related to a recent change to new Samsung phones, which will block sideloading apps by default, though users can turn this function off. So that's kind of where we want to talk about this and where we kind of got interested in this story. I guess our understanding of this is that Samsung has a new security feature that does not allow you to sideload apps by default. However, should be noted, you can go into the settings and turn that feature off so you can download whatever you want. But do you think his criticisms of this is fair, Matt?
Well, like specifically on the Samsung store thing, like I think it's kind of silly, isn't it? Like, because it's like it's opt in now, but if you get the late, like if you start getting if you do the update and you get OneUI 6.1.1, it's then turned on by default and it's opt out. And so like clearly this feature was there before, but it was just it's just a matter of the default status of the toggle being like this big thing. And I had a problem with this. Like I see you have it written here, Ryan. I don't know if you like did you split these into two stories or
Yeah, the second one gave more detail on what Samsung was actually doing. So that's from PC Mag.
right? Like, do you want me to go into that at all, or do you want me to like keep these as two separate
No,
stories
no,
you're
you can go
presenting?
ahead. I put them there just for us to gather the information from.
Yeah, because like okay, so like one of the things that kind of pissed me off about Tim like Sweeney's decision is like I just don't understand something. So like he's saying it's anti-competitive, right? But then what he's saying is he's saying like he when you download an app or download an app store or like software from a reputable source like Epic, a reputable source, it's a safe bet that the thing's going to be fine. Unless something's gone awry, which is not malicious. Like it's not like they were like, fuck yeah, let's brick some devices, right? Unless something's
CrowdStrike.
gone awry, you're usually safe. And he had sort of a statement that I would say more or less like wanted Samsung to run like a database of who's reputable and who isn't. So, like, I'm going to
Yeah.
read this part of the article here. It says, when others asked why he was annoyed when it's easy to disable auto blocker, which is the feature that Samsung has in there, Sweeney said, intentionally introduced friction has huge effects on the viability of competitors trying to compete. If this new obstruction deters 50% of people from installing our competing store, then the accessible market is reduced by 50%. This has cascading anti-competitive effects. Warnings, this is the part, warnings should only be made when there is a clear and specific risk and then should be proportionate to risk. No software from reputable, legally accountable devs should be obstructed by warning screens, and there should be a process. There should be a process open equally to all to establish this. You can't just ask Samsung to effectively create a database that they have to continually maintain and an app of some sort that connects to this database to continually check what the person's trying to install and show a warning or not. You can't ask them to do that for free. That's lunacy. If they do it for free, fantastic. But Samsung really, like, what app are they losing because of this auto blocker default toggle change? They're
Well,
losing Fortnite and a couple other Epic games, I think.
but Android does have a lot of apps. I don't actually know how many, but I imagine from how they talk about it, Android has a lot of apps that can be sideloaded, right?
You can sideload stuff. I've sideloaded stuff for sure. I've sideloaded like
Yeah.
old versions of stuff because I
So
didn't like an update or something.
right. So this auto block stops sideloading, not intentionally. It's not going after sideloading. It's a security feature that happens to block sideloading, is
Right,
how I
because
understand it.
it is risky. Like
Correct.
sideloading is effectively like you double clicking on an exe. Like if you like an exe on Windows, if you don't know, like for the audience, is like a thing that like a program that runs. It's an executable. You're executing it. If you receive an executable from a sketchy ass email, you download it. First of all, you've already made a mistake. You shouldn't have downloaded it. And then if you double click to run it, you've really made a fucking mistake because you really shouldn't have did that. But the
Right.
thing is like if you decide to run that sucker, I mean that's bad, right? Like, but
Yeah.
you can do it. You can do it. And there's warnings and stuff in Windows that'll show up at random and whatever. And I'm not a Windows developer, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it. But I certainly press allow on things, right? Allow through firewall, allow to install,
Oh yeah, of
allow to
course.
make
Yeah.
changes to my system, things like that. It's almost like he's asking for that. He's saying like, oh, like we shouldn't be obstructed by warning screens. What do you mean you shouldn't be obstructed by warning screens?
Well, he's saying if there is a risk, the risks should have to meet some bar, I guess, of risk, and it's I think he's what he's saying. It has to be justified. I assume he doesn't think it's justified in this situation.
But who has the database of what needs to be told, what needs to have a warning and what doesn't? That's what pisses me off. Like this makes no sense. Like, okay, let's think about it this way. Apps come into an app store and there's an approval process of some sort. I don't know what the Galaxy Store approval process is, but let's just say it's a comprehensive for the sake of conversation. It's a comprehensive check. They check for viruses. They check for things that'll work, not work, whatever. They check if it's allowed based on their code of conduct, and then if it is allowed, they put the thing on their app store, and there it is, right? So somebody has gone in, whether it's an AI, a person, or a combination of both. Someone has gone in and checked that. It now goes into the store. That store entry is an entrance into a database that says this app is here. It's, this is the size, this is the description of it, this is the name, and because it's in this database, it is safe to download. This guy is effectively saying like, well, we shouldn't have to deal with warning screens. Samsung's effectively covering their own ass because they don't want fucking people going into random APKs, which is the EXE of Android. They don't want people to go into APKs or just download APKs willy-nilly or receive them via email. Even so, totally possible. Receive them via email and then just start running APKs unadulterated, or all willy-nilly. Like, you can't, like, this is crazy. So he effectively wants, like, it's almost like he wants, he's not asking for it directly, but effectively what it would take, at least off the top of my head, is he wants like an app store approval process without having an app store and then have it like go through without warnings. But then he doesn't want to, but the reason why he's making this app store thing is because he doesn't want to pay any sort of like piece of the pie, or at least he doesn't want to pay a lot of his pie to the like, this is chaos. Like, being on the Galaxy Store means it's gone through some sort of approval process. If the Galaxy Store was absolutely filled to the brim with malware, the Galaxy Store would immediately have to rebrand or re-innovate on its approval process, right? Like, there would be a lot of steps that have to be taken. They'd have to like be like, okay, sorry guys, we have a new approval process. There's going to be like a safeguard in place and like blah, 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 because Samsung doesn't want their Galaxy Store to be filled with malware because then no one's going to show up and download it. But at the same time, they don't like, they're trying to protect their users. Like, how many like devices are going to get bricked by having people run APKs willy nilly and they haven't stopped it? And then like people are like, Samsung sucks. Because they don't understand.
I think he's worried about the pop-up because if you get a pop-up like that, it almost makes you distrust it, even if you think it's from a reputable source.
That's correct.
So if you go to Epic Games and like start downloading Fortnite and it says, caution, you're downloading from an unauthorized developer, download at your own risk, that's going to turn off a lot of people.
That's right. So he's right in an anti-competitive sense in a way. He's right in a way where we're like, sure. Like, maybe you could go to the courts and convince the courts to say, yo, the sideloading experience is being held back competitively and therefore needs to be revised and needs to be regulated. And Samsung must provide warnings on sketchy software and must provide a green light with no warnings to, app stores and APKs and stuff that they deem trusted. So Samsung must do that. But what I'm saying is like, I think it's lunacy to just expect them to do that.
Yeah, because that'd
be like saying like, oh, Samsung's going to go through and bug test my app for me and like make sure it runs perfect. Like, the hell's that?
Samsung's objective is not to make Tim Sweeney happy.
Exactly.
Samsung's objective is to make sure their customers feel safe using their product. Right? If their product has a bunch of security holes in it, people aren't going to use that product. They're going to be worried about it. So their objective here, and I'm sure there's probably some email you could find somewhere where their executive said, oh, and it will stop some sideloading from other stores, right? Obviously, they want to drive people to their stores. I get that. But I think it's a good security thing, because there's going to be a slew of just crappy and malicious apps out there that people might download by accident.
Oh, there's going to be so many bad actors effectively because of this. 110% is going to be like, and like, there's already malware on Android and I'm not saying that because like right now Auto Blocker is opt-in. Mine is off by default and I don't remember ever touching it because I have a Samsung phone and I do not have this 6.1.1 update yet. So like the thing is it's like, I've been fine thus far. So maybe like, Tim Sweeney has a bit of a point there, to concede a point where it's like, I go to a website that I find reputable, which is like the Epic Game Store or whatever. I download the launcher directly from Epic, the Android launcher, and I install it. Clearly I've done my due diligence as a user. I've gone to a reputable place. I know what Epic is. I should be able to press install without that scary pop-up, like you're saying, Ryan, that would potentially scare me away. Right? I get that. But who is maintaining that? That's what's driving me nuts. Who is maintaining what? Who is safe and who isn't?
Well,
Like,
before the
is it up to the
podcast,
user?
we were talking about this before the podcast, and I had brought up Apple's solution on Mac OS. Now, obviously, iOS, they control the App Store. It's the only thing that's available until that update with in Europe. But here in Canada and in the US, it's still just going to be Apple running the App Store. But on Mac OS, which has never been exclusively App Store, because the App Store didn't exist until 5+ years ago on the Mac, more than that, I think actually. So most apps were sideloaded and still are to this day, right? So what Apple has is like an authorized or verified developer, some sort of key, I guess that gets transmitted when you download an app from some website,
Right.
right? So when I download the Epic Game Store on Mac, it just installs. I don't have to worry about it, right? But if I download it from some sketchy website and it's not the Epic Game Store, it's Epic with like two C's Game Store, it will give me a warning and say this is not from a trusted site.
Right.
But it also gives you the option very easily, a button you click on, it opens the settings and takes you right to where you need to go to approve it. So if you know it's from a legit website, you can just instantly approve it.
Right.
And I think maybe Samsung would need to implement something like that would make Tim Sweeney maybe a little more accepting of it.
I don't disagree with that at all. What I disagree with, to be clear, is his cutthroatness and stuff like this. Like, I'm fine with him being like, hey, I think this is anti-competitive. These are the reasons I think Samsung should implement a system like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's totally fair. I think it's friggin' stupid to be like, oh, you turned on a toggle, did you? Well, I'm leaving. It's like, well, there goes Tim Sweeney again.
Yeah.
I
don't want to speak for Tim Sweeney, but it feels like he's treating these platforms as if they're, uh, uh, public spaces.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't have to pay anything into it. He should just be able to use it. So it's like Apple has spent all this money and years of development and technology and R&D to develop and sell iPhones. He wants to ride on those coattails with his Fortnite on iOS and not pay Apple anything.
Right.
That's how I'm viewing his intentions here. I get where he's coming from in terms of competitiveness. He wants a third-party store on iOS where he can compete, which would technically make both stores better because we all believe competition makes things better for the consumer, right? But it just feels like he's just trying to get out of paying any dues to the platforms he's on.
He's kind of like you said. It's like the public. It's like he thinks these are like the town square.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yelling out like, hey, anyone want to download the Epic Game Store? And there's no like person that runs in front of you if you go over to him that goes like, hey, hang on. That might not be a reputable, chat or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like he almost wants it to be just open. And I get the argument like you're saying where it's like Apple put all this money into the App Store and stuff like that. But I also get, flip the coin and you could say, well, the reason why Apple did that is because they want apps on there and they want people to buy iPhones. And so by running an app store that's good, people are going to buy iPhones. And that's what they get out of their end. There's an argument to be had there as well. Like it's
symbiotic though. The Apple works and develops the hardware and the iOS software, and they make a bunch of APIs that they give to their developers, right? They develop all those out for them and stuff. And then on the same or on the other side of that coin, it's the apps that are kind of the reason people are buying phones. It's both. They both work together, and so they both need to share in the profits.
And I don't disagree with that. Like I definitely don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. This is tricky.
It's tricky, but I do like. Okay, do you agree? And I think you do. Do you agree?
I should mention too. I'm an Apple shareholder, by the way.
Well, I mean, so am I. I'm like 3 shares though, but like. But like, is like in terms of this particular case, like, do you think Tim Sweeney is like overreaching now? Like to me, it's almost like you'd have to like implement security features or just features on your device that affect the install level. Let's say you're kind of like walking on eggshells a bit. You're developing on eggshells because you're just like, oh Christ, better ask good old Tim Sweeney if this is all right.
I mean, I'm not entirely against Tim Sweeney's views on these things. I want to just make that clear. I think I'm on record even on this podcast as saying like, I don't think it would be that big of a deal if he was able to install his own app store because that's how life is on Mac OS. That's how it's
Right.
always been. It's not some hellscape of fraudulent apps being downloaded. Apple just has to work a little harder to protect people.
Right.
That's about it. So it's not some hellscape. So if Tim Sweeney wants to fight and get his own app store on iOS, I'm okay with that in principle. I've just kind of been upset with his behavior in trying to achieve that goal.
Agreed.
That's where he's kind of been losing me in that sense. I don't like that he did that stunt where he knowingly and willfully broke the rules he had already agreed to when being on the App Store. He did it as a political stunt almost, you know, trying to gain attention and what do you call it?
Like publicity?
Publicity. Yeah. Cuz like that means he broke the rules. He had agreed to be listening to those rules, right? And then willfully broke them. And then put out his little video where he was making fun of the 1984 Apple ad,
Yeah,
you
that was
know,
kind of wild. Yeah.
and then tried to turn his Fortnite fans against Apple to try to get them on his side. It's just like it very much felt like not what's the word for it? Performative.
And like being performative like that, because I agree with you, sure. Like he got a big bunch of publicity very quickly. It kind of worked for him in that regard, and I get it, right? It's
I
like
remember
I can be
Greg Miller. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I can be like if you act performative, you're gonna get more headlines about you and more publicity than if you just like went on your personal blog and like tried to like complain.
Mm-hmm. I remember when this went down, when Epic first broke the App Store guidelines. I remember Greg Miller tweeted out like "fuck Apple" or something like that, and it was just like, holy crap, that's
Jesus,
a bit crazy reaction. And he's still using an iPhone and then a MacBook on his. What I've noticed.
that's lunacy. Like that's a bit lunacy, isn't it? A little bit of lunacy there.
And the other problem is Epic being a multi-billion-dollar company and trying to act like the underdog. Yes, you technically are when going up against a $3 trillion behemoth like Apple, but you're still a multi-billion-dollar company that rakes in millions of dollars, if not billions. I don't know how much they make.
A
So
lot.
it's just like calm down. You're doing pretty well under this tyranny of Apple. You know what I mean?
It's the thing too is like he would have got like if he had just and I'm assuming I want to be clear right now and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, is like if he had kept Fortnite been less performative, had kept Fortnite the way it was, just doing the updates, staying within the App Store, but then decided to tweet a whole bunch, kind of create a ruckus, get some interviews, write about it in blogs and sites and stuff like that, and then also bring stuff up and be like, hey, hey, we like this, we need to change this. I'm going to sue Apple about this. Bring it up in an official capacity. I mean, I feel like Fortnite would remain on the App Store, right? Like even if there was a legal case pending, I feel like Fortnite would still be allowed on there, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, I think it's kind of probably unclear just because Apple, when this went down, Apple like canceled their developer account or suspended their developer account. So I don't know if that was in some sort of retaliation for a specific thing they did or just overall they suspended them. And I think the court actually overturned that, if I'm not mistaken, that
Right.
suspension.
Okay.
So it's unclear if Fortnite would have stayed there. However, I do think it would have been the smarter move to just keep making money with Fortnite on iOS. And you could have still sued Apple for the same things he sued for.
Yeah.
He might have got more sympathy because, again, he broke the rules he'd agreed to. And
Especially if they got kicked off the App Store and he was following the rules, he'd be like, yo, what the hell is
yeah.
that?
And I remember reading at the time that courts don't like it when you try to sue to negotiate a contract with the company.
I mean, that makes sense. So you're just using up court time.
The court is not there to negotiate for you. They're there to handle if someone broke the law.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
a dispute of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah, and so remember, Epic lost like 8 of 9 of the whatever the charges were, wherever the heck it was, whatever number. They'd only won one, and that was the anti-steering thing where Apple doesn't allow you to link out or have any language in the app saying, "Oh, you can get it cheaper if you go to the website."
And like these are things that could have been brought up in like a more reputable way. Like you're right. Like and I mean it wasn't exactly like the most tyrannous thing ever to
Mhm.
break the App Store rules, and then the App Store gets rid of you. It's not like he like went and shot somebody or something or beat somebody up, but like it would look really bad on Apple if they ban their developer account because of a lawsuit,
Yeah.
because of like a
Yeah.
legit dispute that this guy's like, hey, I think this isn't the way it should be.
Yeah.
And then Apple's
I,
like, well, if you're going against us, I'm turning you, I'm flipping off I'm turning off
yeah.
your developer account.
I just want to make clear too. Like my thoughts on this are not that hardened, I guess. I'm open to hearing both sides. I obviously fall on Apple's side. I do have an Apple bias, obviously, but I also just, as an Apple fan and user, I enjoy the closed ecosystem, and it feels like people are trying to tear it down, despite Apple fans liking the closed ecosystem. We chose that as our preferred method of using computers, you know. And if you want something else, there are Android phones you can get from many different makers. There are Windows devices you can get. There are Linux devices you can get. You know, why they had to come clawing down the Apple walled garden is a little frustrating.
It's kind of like that thing that you were saying, I think, when you were off air, when you said that when you reach a certain point in terms of your scale, you're so big that you lose control of your own product. Like everyone comes to sniffing and goes like, "Well, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, why do you have a power button? Why isn't it this? Why isn't it that? That's it. I'm going to the courts.
Yeah.
I'm getting this changed."
And that's one of the ironic things too about Apple is that they are a $3 trillion company. They were for a while the biggest company in the world. They make billions of dollars a year. They sell millions and millions of products, but yet they're not really number one in a lot of categories. But people perceive them as number one.
Right.
And so they get treated as if they're number one, you know? But there are far more options for doing everything that these people are complaining about, you know? And it's like, let the free market has said people like the closed system. If they didn't, Apple has always been closed, really, right? Yes, they have compatibility with certain third party things, but compared to Windows, they're closed, right? And yet they still became a $3 trillion company. Clearly, the free market has said we like this, you know,
And
or at
there's
least a
like
portion of the population likes this.
there's a big hole in it too, where it's like the opposing side, the non-walled garden, which is Android, is not exactly a fringe decision either. Like it's one thing to say like, go use that random build a Linux that 10 people have downloaded, right? It's sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like you can't, that's ridiculous, right? It's a little too much.
Yeah, yeah,
And obviously there's versions of Linux that thousands and thousands and thousands of people have downloaded. But what I'm trying to point out is that Android is the opposite option. It's not the walled garden option, although you could argue like maybe Samsung is now, whatever, but
or
it's
they're trying to be maybe.
maybe, but they're not but the Android largely is not the walled garden option, and they're a large option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like it's like I want a premium camera, but if I want a premium camera, I have to go to Apple because Android only has a million fans. That's not
Mm-hmm.
true. You can get an
Right.
amazing camera on Ample. You can get an amazing camera on Apple and on
Yeah.
Android.
Mm-hmm. On several Androids.
Yeah, like there's a lot of freaking same with a bunch of iPhones, but over the years, there's a lot of good cameras now.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of freaking stuff. Like there's a lot of options and big options too, and competitively priced even for Pete's
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah. And just to kind of put this in perspective too, that CrowdStrike issue that happened last week, right? It was like big major news for tech. A lot of people in tech were talking about it and stuff. It affected like 8.5 million PCs. That's a lot of PCs, but that was
Right.
like 1% of Windows PCs in the world. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. That's a lot.
So
That's a lot
there
of
are,
PCs for being 1% or whatever.
yeah, and Apple sells like 8.5 million Macs like total a year or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So it's just like Apple is not the big dog that people think they are. It's just that they make more money because their margins are higher, you know?
It's really funny when people say, "Oh, Mac's coming for Windows, like that's it." And I'm like, "No, it's not," because like
No.
I know, like just in my very small sample size of people I know, there's a ton of people that go, "Which one's cheapest?" Well, I would be very hard pressed to say Apple. Sorry,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's cheaper options, but they aren't the cheapest, and
Yeah.
many people only care about the cheapest.
Well, there's so many use cases for Windows computers where you don't need an expensive computer. You just
Yeah,
need something
yep.
cheap, you know. Most things, most point of sale systems don't need some expensive computer. And that's a lot of PCs out there.
I feel like it's a thing too where it's going to be like when ARM or if ARM really takes off on Windows, which it kind of seems to be finally kind of taking hold.
I hope so.
Like I have a feeling that you're going to get, and this is going to take a few years for it to mature, to be clear, but you're going to get some real affordable, decent computers. Just, laptop, boom, no cooling, no nonsense, take it to college, do your word processing, your PDFs and your spreadsheets. And, that's it.
Well, it's like smartphones. I always see like Marquez talking about how you can get like a really good quality phone for like $200 American that has a good camera, that has modern features like wireless charging and stuff. The prices have come down on good products now, So that could be the case with PCs too.
Well, I have a developer buddy that has a massive phone. It's an Android phone. It's super thick. It's like a centimeter and a half thick. It's rugged, like it's rugged out of the box. It has like LiDAR. It has like a fingerprint sensor. It has like an iris sensor in it. It has like a good display. Runs all the apps. Has like 6-day battery life, which is why it's so thick. Like 6-day battery life. It has like a what do you call it? Like a flashlight, but it has like different like modes in it. So, it'll like flash for SOS and stuff like that. Like it's a rugged phone, right? So it like has all these like features. It has a bunch of other stuff too. It has like infrared, it has an infrared camera in there and stuff like that. Like all these little gadgets all put into one. That's an Android option. If you want a fucking weird looking phone, you could go there and do that. He does it. He's doing it for years. He keeps buying the new one whenever it comes out because it's like $200.
Yeah.
And he loves it and it works perfect. And he shows it to me and it runs real nice, looks really nice, and I don't, haven't used it for a long period of time, but I mean, it's certainly much cheaper and comparable than my $2,200 Samsung device, Canadian.
Yeah.
And it's like, pretty good. Again, I haven't used it long term, but like that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so big, Ryan. It has a lanyard. The thing is, well, it's supposed to be, again, right? Rugged phone. You don't charge it for 6 days. I think he said one of them has a solar panel on the back now.
Oh my Lord.
So it just like you flip it over and it'll charge in like 12 hours or something. Yeah, it's wild. Like, or get a day's battery life in 12 hours or something like that. It's freaking wild. Like it's like a phone version of like a Swiss Army knife. It's crazy. Like he showed me he's like, oh, this is night photography. And I was like, why is it like, black and white or whatever? Like kind of looks like IR. And he's like, it is. It's like this infrared. It's like, what the hell is going on?
All right. Well, we'll see how this all shakes out. Be interesting to see how Apple handles side loading because they will have to do that in the EU.
Do you think that just like the USB-C, do you think it's going to come to other places?
I don't think Apple will bring that to any place they don't have to by law.
You think that's like, well, because like people like you're kind of saying that that's kind of like a final straw, but like I kind of feel like the lightning cable was a bit.
I don't know about that one. I know everyone likes to act like the EU caused that. I don't know if that's the case. I think they're probably because Apple had slowly been switching to USB-C. The fact that the iPads switched to it before the iPhone kind of just felt like the iPhones.
Years before, though, Ryan.
Yes, but I think it was just a slow rollout for them, and a lot of people were ragging on Apple for not including chargers in the boxes and stuff because they were saying, "Oh, we can save this much plastic and rare earth materials, but not including it and stuff." But then at the same time, they wanted Apple to switch from Lightning to USB-C and make millions, tens of millions of Lightning cables obsolete, which would all go into the trash heap. You know what I mean? It's just like
I don't know if that's a consideration though. I would say because like I mean
I'm not for Apple.
Right.
Maybe for Apple. They do have like an entire team that works on environmental stuff.
But I mean I think they do have cables though. Like it's just the reality.
Of course, but you have to change cables when they break or whatever, but that's normal. That's just wear and tear on cables. They're going to break. They need replacements. But you have people complaining that Apple isn't doing enough for the environment, that they just make up goofy things, like they're trying to sell more power adapters and they cut them out of the box. But then at the same time, when they're criticizing Apple for not being environmental enough, they also are begging them to make tens of millions of cables and accessories. Mind you, Apple has a massive third-party accessory industry, right? Make all of those obsolete and just toss outable.
I disagree with that take. I understand that you're right in that things are going to be throwawayable or whatever, like tossable. I will say though that not that long ago, and like long ago, but not that long ago, we had the real big Apple adapter,
30 pin dot
the
connector.
30 pin, and a bunch of
Yeah.
those iHomes and crap were thrown out. And I didn't hear a single peep about, oh, environmentalism this, environmentalism that. People went from micro USB on Android over to USB C. We had freaking micro or mini maybe HDMI outputs on a lot of phones and crap, which went away. So all those cables are pretty much obsolete. Like I don't hear about cables and environmentalism. Is there an environmental impact? Assuredly, 100%, assuredly. There's also an argument to say, well, they're not including the power brick and the cable in the box anymore for environmental reasons because but because like you can like you can
Use what you
ship
have.
usually you have, but you can ship the phones. You can ship more phones on a pallet, which is less gas, but it's also more profit. So then that's another little bit of an eyebrow raiser. But then if you need an adapter, now you have to order it for a primo price from Apple. If you want the Apple official stuff, you have to order for a primo price. I would like to say.
But wait, that would you would only have to do that if you need to. That was the whole
Right,
point.
but these adapters are also flown in on gas. So like
No,
what
no,
where are the
but wait,
numbers
wait.
on how much environmental impact it is to have
No, no.
the
Regardless,
the brick and the cable in the box versus in a separate box in its own pallet? I don't know the numbers. I want to be clear here. I'm asking the question. I don't know the numbers.
for the record, the cable still ships with it. You still get a USB-C cable with an iPhone.
Okay, but
You just don't get the
brick
power
then.
brick. Yeah. Now, but just think about this. I already have several USB-C power bricks from my other Apple products, from
Sure.
my iPads, from my past phones that had USB-C. Well, I guess none of my past ones had USB-C, but my past MacBook had USB-C chargers. I have ways to charge USB-C my iPhone. I do not need to buy a power brick. I did not buy a power brick when I got my new phone, right?
Right.
So that's it being saved right there. Now, if you were someone who needed a new power brick, you would need one anyway.
If you were a person that needed a new power brick, you would need one anyway.
Yeah, so you'd have to buy one anyway, or get it in the box. But either way, you needed
Well,
one
if you got it in
regardless.
the box, that's arguably more environmentally friendly in that particular
No,
case.
but it's cutting out a percentage of people like me who don't need one.
Right, that you're correct. That's the math I'm talking about. I'm talking about the math of having separate boxes and a separate product SKU, I guess, for having a brick and or cable together.
And
I understand the cable is included, but like a brick and or cable combo being, brought over on its own pallet with its own gas being used and stuff like that to transport it versus versus having people have an absolute crap load of, and it's not even really that many, but they eventually get a collection of power bricks
mhm,
because they get a new phone every two
your
three
old
years.
cable drawer.
But the thing is like it's not going in the landfill, and like how like I don't really have that many power adapters
Yeah,
personally, and like I've been bought phones for years. Like I have a fair bit, but like unfortunately, even just not even due to them breaking, the wattage themselves is too low now.
that's true too.
It's like I'm not going to frickin' charge something on a 6 watt charger. It's going to take for freaking ever.
But that's been another funny thing about the demand of the consumers. So it's like they demand Apple be environmental, but then they also demand faster and faster charging,
Yeah,
which would
but
require buying faster charging bricks and
no
replacing
one
your
said
slow charging bricks.
no one said being a multi-trillion-dollar company servicing millions of customers was easy.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they're definitely reaping rewards from being in a difficult situation.
I just want people to be consistent in their criticisms of Apple. So you mentioned like the 30-pin dock connector. When that got replaced, people were up in arms, angry that they would dare replace it with Lightning. Right? All my accessories are broken. I can't use all this crap. And then USB-C comes along, and they're all like, "We want USB-C. We don't care about Lightning anymore."
But you could argue that USB-C is the future because there's all kinds of versions of USB-C with like different wattage acceptance. Some have video out, et cetera,
Here's
et
the funny
cetera. The
thing too.
Thunderbolt, blah 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 blah.
Here's the funny thing. Apple helped co-develop USB-C.
They also like promote it or something. I can't remember now. Progressive web apps. Like Apple's weird like that.
But anyway, that's it for the news. Moving on to what we're playing. Matt, what are you
Me.
playing? Well, you're the only one here.
I completed something big this week.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah, like just last week I was talking about how I thought it was kind of crazy that I was only in the middle of RoboCop, and like I was thinking about taking a break, and even if I took a break for a month or more, I'd still know where I was at. But I just like sat down on a Sunday and was like, well, I'm going to see how far I get, and I beat it. I just I completed it. There was a lot. The end part. There was certainly a lot of missions, but the end part was a lot more linear than it was, sort of free roam. And it was really enjoyable. I really had a good time. My RoboCop's like pretty upgraded now. I have unlimited ammo. I don't need to reload either, so I don't reload. I have unlimited ammo, which you always have for the pistol. And I also have full auto, so I just fucking run into a situation and just mulch people, absolutely mulch people to death. But that's like now I actually have all the achievements as well, which is cool. Only one other game I have that I completed all the achievements, I think, which is I want to say no, Outriders I played on Xbox. I can't remember what I was. There's one other game on Steam where I actually completed all the achievements. I can't remember what it's called now, but or which one it is. But anyway, so it's the second game I've ever done that on, and now I can, although I'm probably not going to right now, but now I can do New Game Plus, which is cool.
Nice.
But no, that game was really, really good. I got like an A or maybe higher if there is a higher. Like I got like one of the highest, if not the highest rating on all missions but one, which is really cool. And no, it was just a good time. I wish they would fix there's a Steam Deck or sorry, there's a Steam Cloud issue where it just at some point stops saving or like it stops syncing. And some people have diagnosed it to it makes saves for you automatically at each mission. And then there's also like a rolling couple of auto saves. And it appears, at least according to some people in the forums, that all the saves added up as you progress through the game, all the saves added up are too much space for the Steam Cloud. Haven't
Hmm.
confirmed that myself, and like maybe that's more of a developer thing, so I'm not really going to. But I've been manually backing up my RoboCop saves because of it, because I actually can't play my latest save on Steam Deck, which is kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain, but whatever. I beat it on PC. It is complete, and literally did everything in the game. So short of like some stupid like gain like pick up evidence, which is just like mass picking up random bits of evidence that are worth like some points. That's the only thing I didn't do.
Yeah.
And only one time. I did it on every mission except for one because I didn't realize it was there.
Mm.
But no, so that it was RoboCop, really, really good. Like if you like RoboCop, the movie, even a little bit, the first one, really fantastic. Like Peter Weller's the voice of RoboCop again. The game is like really, really satisfying combat. It's really, really good. I heard some complaints that you don't really need the level ups and you don't really need. There's sort of like a. Some people argue it's overly complicated. I actually like it. There's like a little bit of like a game thing where you I think I mentioned it last week where you have like a chip and there's like different like pathways. And if you connect the pathways up, you get the benefits. But if you connect the pathway to a negative thing, then you get like the negative thing. So you have to sort of like choose a direction that your chips go. It's like a little mini game almost. And you can
Hmm.
combine your parts. So if you like you can combine like a 10% part, another 10% part, another 12% part, and like re-roll it. And maybe it'll become like a 14% part. And then you could use that and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Like I like it. Like it's a bit of management for sure, but like I only did it a few times and I thought it was rewarding, so I liked it.
Nice.
Um, that's RoboCop. Honestly, like I think this game might be a 10 out of 10.
Woo,
I
doggy.
honestly can't think of a bad thing about it. Like it, I was kind of thinking it was overstaying its welcome a little bit, but right when I thought that way, it just picked up, got like super actiony, became more or less linear, and I just like ripped through the end without rushing. So like I kind of feel like they realize like, oh, this is going to be like kind of overstaying its welcome at this point. Let's speed it up. And like the combat is so fucking crazy. Like walking out of an alleyway, picking up, like grabbing a biker off of his bike, whipping him into another biker, or grabbing the bike so the biker goes flying and then whipping the bike at another biker and shit, like grabbing people, whipping them into ceilings. It's crazy. Like it's exactly what you would expect out of a RoboCop game.
Yeah.
You have to take cover here and there, but you can't crouch. You can't attach yourself to walls or anything like that. You're RoboCop. Like you run in there and you just like there's been some trouble and you just start fucking shooting everybody. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like it's really well done. And for Nacon or Nason or whatever it is, maybe and then Taeon, I think, or whatever. The developers of this thing, they did the Terminator game. Too many damn developer names. I can't remember everyone's name, but they did the Terminator game, and one of the things that was bad in the Terminator game was the voice acting, real
Mm.
bad. Terminator Resistance, Terminator Resistance Annihilation Line, which is the DLC, and a big DLC at that, um, improved upon that, and this improves upon it again. Not perfect, but I really liked it. So if you're a RoboCop fan, I would say like run out and get this now. There's no question, for sure. And or 80s futurism, there's no question for sure.
I believe it's one of the games coming to Mac OS.
I
So
mean,
I think I'm gonna check it out there when it comes out.
I was gonna say, like, if you're looking for a reason to try it out, I would try it out. Like, you get to choose like pathways too and how to do things, and like, I outright refuse to do things illegally. So I made realistically morally bad decisions because of that decision. Like you'd think like upholding the law is great, but like OCP, the big company, is they're manipulating things. So the morally correct choice sometimes is to do the illegal thing to sort of get under the skin of OCP. But I refused. I was like, no, I'm RoboCop. Like RoboCop that here, like that he upholds the
Yeah,
law. Like that's
yeah.
it. Too bad. Um, so anyway, that's RoboCop. Run out and go get it now. From a video store near you.
Stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble. Thank you. Good night. Uh, there's a lot of quotable. There's a lot of fucking quotable lines in that game too. I have so many clips of RoboCop just saying like absolutely ridiculous things, which is absolutely incredible. Other than RoboCop though, I've been playing um, again from my childhood, a weird one. I've been playing Pirates: Legend of Black Cat. I completed 2 or 3 islands, and like full island zones because some of the zones have multiple islands on them. I completed 2 or 3 of them. Fuck me, is that game hard? Like, there's a reason why I fucking sucked at it as a kid. Holy fuck! It doesn't explain shit to you. You just like walk in a room and it's like, oh, this giant crab is gonna kill you. It's like, oh, all right, and it doesn't teach you how to kill it. It's not rocket science, but you get your ass kicked. I'm being given quests and I have a quest log. There's no freaking marker. Like the one guy comes to me, he's like, yo, like, I'll give you a skeleton key if you kill these pirates with the yellow sails. It's like, all right, cool. And I can't remember whether he said where they were. I'm pretty sure he didn't. And it's just like, all right, if I kill some pirates with yellow sails, I'll let you know. And it's like, great. So now I gotta remember that there's pirates with yellow sails out there, and whenever if I ever find them, and I have to kill them, I also have to fucking remember where this guy was and go back and talk to him. Like it ridiculous. Like fucking games back then, man. So I
Hmm.
don't feel bad. Like I felt bad as like going in. I was like, man, I was an idiot as a kid. I couldn't friggin' do this. Yeah, I almost couldn't do it now. So game's hard. Like I don't know. But what else have I been doing this week? Oh, Fortnite quite a bit. We've been doing Fortnite pretty hard. Um, Pretty fun. I've been trying to complete the season. I'm almost done. I'm level 90 something, so I'm doing really good. I'm hoping to, for the last like week or so of the season, work on bonus objectives. And then if I don't quite reach the objective that I want, so I'm just going to purchase my way there because I won't owe that much, which is pretty good. That's kind of basically more or less what I'm doing. But there's so many challenges and there's so many quests now that I feel like I'm going to get there no problem. And like there was one that was like, oh, go into like player created experiences and experience those. And those give you so much XP. It was crazy. Like I was leveling up, like you and I, Ryan, we played for what, a couple hours and we got like 4 levels. And then I went on to there for like 40 minutes or less. And
Hmm.
I just got another 4 levels, 5 levels. It's like, all right. So yeah, just crazy. But I think I think that's been my a little bit of Apex, like the usual. A little bit of Apex. Got a win again. Freaking winner in Apex. Just a quick win every week. No big deal. And I think that's it. That's been my week.
Not a terrible amount for me. A little bit of Elden Ring. Just I'm at the last boss. I've only tried him twice, and then kind of went back. I've been helping Aaron out a bit just so I can level up a little bit more. And I don't know, maybe we'll try this weekend to finish off that DLC. Um, Fortnite, obviously, I actually I did buy the battle pass, and so I wanted to get the Fallout stuff. It actually feels good to be playing it again. We kind of slowed down a bit, but I've been having fun the last couple times we've been playing. So it'd be nice to get back into that. And then Overwatch, trying to get that season done too. These damn games as a service, always a freaking thorn in our sides.
Man, that's
Uh,
why I do one.
yeah, yeah, you kind of had to pick one. And we dropped Fallout 76, which is kind of sad. I never finished
Brand
the
new
expansion.
DLC. Brand
Yeah.
new fucking DLC. And it's just like, well, I don't need this.
And then other than that, I just Modern Warfare 3. I was about to buy it on PlayStation because it was like $50, which is cheap here in Canada for a game. Um, and then very next day, like the news came out, it was coming to Game Pass, and so I saved $50 and I
I was
downloaded it
yelling
there.
at you too.
I played one multiplayer match, and then that was it. But I'm going to plan on doing the campaign. However, I just remembered I don't think I finished Modern Warfare 2, so I'm going to have to go back and finish that first. But
That's a bloody good campaign too.
yeah, that's it for me.
I
Not,
well,
not a lot.
funny like addition to your thing is when you were like, man, I might buy this. Is it's only $50? And I was like, Ryan, do you have any idea how much of lunacy or whatever it is to like buy a game that is probably going to end up on Game Pass when you didn't want to play it right away? Like you even told me you're like, I don't really need to play it right now. It's like, well, then wait, see if it comes to Game Pass.
Yeah,
And it literally, and right, literally the next day it gets announced.
crazy. Eh?
Ridiculous.
Just on a side note, I'm struggling to. I have so I over a year ago I moved into a new place, and I'm slowly bringing over stuff from my parents' house to my new place, and I brought over my original PS4, my launch day PS4. Right, I can't get controllers to sync to it. I have two DualShock 4s in working condition, as far as I know, and they will not sync to it when connecting with the cable.
Did you reset the controllers?
No, that's the only thing I'm going to try next.
I had that problem, and
However,
I just reset them and it seemed to work.
I don't know what the deal is with micro USB, but are some of them like just power and that's it?
Yep.
And so these might not be data cables.
Oh, well, yeah, you definitely have to check that. I have a full set of cables that are three, like it's USB A, and then like the thing you plug into your phone is Lightning, Micro, or C. I
Hmm.
bring those like on for trips, right? It's just an easy thing. Oh no, I forgot my cable. Can easily charge your device, but that is all it does.
Yeah. So these might be data, or sorry, these might be power only cables I'm trying. However, I tried a mouse cable because I have a Corsair mouse. I figured that would have been data, at least enough to sync the damn thing, but maybe not. A mouse probably gives so little bandwidth, right? Maybe it's super low.
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a very good question.
So I actually just ended up purchasing an official Sony DualShock 4 USB-C cable or USB micro USB cable from
You don't have any
Amazon.
micro USB cables?
I don't know where they all went. They're in some landfill, I guess.
Oh, you know what? You're not an Android guy, so
No,
I
iPhone's
got a
never used
fuckload of those cables.
that horrible cable. But anyway,
Man,
I got a brand new PlayStation DualShock 4 cable coming. So
I was gonna say
see if
like
that works.
if the cables you have are data only or power only, usually they're pretty low quality. That one you bought is probably gonna be super nice.
Well, the one I have is simply to it's from my sister's Ring doorbell to charge it. That's
Oh,
what the
that's
cable's from.
definitely a power cable, I would say.
But it's ridiculous that they're making power only cables. Like that's why not just make a data one? Like why make a different production line? You know,
Environmentalism, right? You mentioned it yourself there. Using extra metal, using extra plastic.
I suppose.
Come on now.
Well, now I have no cable that works. So Christ, bad consumer experience.
It's almost like the Apple not including the brick in the box experience.
No, it's not. I have those.
I'm just trying to piss you off, to be honest.
All right. Thanks for listening, folks. I'll update you on my PlayStation issues next week.
Please
You can
do.
watch us streaming on twitch.tv/day1patchmedia. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. See ya.
Yo, peace.